So, this week we've been talking about psychological safety. And as Gary Keogh reminded us on Tuesday, it's not just your boss's job to create it. You and me, we're either building it up or tearing it down. And you know what? In those early career scrambles to belong, it's easy to slip. You laugh along at the gossip, you point a finger or two, maybe. Roll your eyes. These are tiny moves, but they send a massive signal that you're not safe here. Now, most people don't set out to be cruel, do they? But intention doesn't matter if the impact is actually exclusion. And every eye roll, every whisper, every side comment can chip away at the very belonging we all say that we want. So today we're talking about how to rise above those below the line behaviours, why we do them, how to spot them, and most importantly, how to flip them into career rocket fuel. I'm Caroline Esterson, your host, and welcome to this episode of Little Moves, Big Careers, all about how to rise above. This isn't a pep talk, it's a practical guide with a glint in its eye. Smart moves, slight chaos. Welcome to Little Moves, Big Careers. Let's be honest, early in your career, belonging feels like oxygen. You'll do anything to be in. Laugh at the gossip, join the whisper circle, even maybe subtly shove somebody under the bus. We'll look at some of those examples shortly. But why? Why do we feel the need to do this? Because our brains are wired for it. So let's explore some of that theory.
Time for brain food, the research bit, but make it cheeky.
Because we all love evidence, especially when it supports our own experiences. I want to highlight 3 pieces of research that help to explain our actions here. Firstly, social identity theory from Tiefel and Turner found that just being labelled as part of a group makes us favour our in-group and dismiss the out-of-group. Even if the groups are actually totally meaningless, we'll still bend our reality to protect our side. In the workplace, that looks like siding with the loudest clique or throwing, as we've said before, someone else under the bus just to prove you belong. This is how closed clubs are created in work, like the ones that we discussed in season 1, episode 2. Then we've got evolutionary psychology. Gossip wasn't always toxic. In small tribes, it kept people safe. If someone couldn't be trusted to pull their weight, the group needed to know. But fast forward to modern workplaces, and here's the catch. We ain't in a tribe of 50 anymore. We're in teams, organisation, networks of hundreds or thousands. Gossip doesn't just flow, it spreads like wildfire, often way beyond the person involved. In a tribe, gossip and feedback were the same thing. You'd see the person tomorrow and they'd know what had been said. But in today's workplaces, gossip often happens behind closed doors, doesn't it? The person just never gets the chance to respond or change. And in a tribe, gossip built unity against genuine threats. In a team, gossip creates micro-alliances that fracture the bigger group. You're not protecting survival anymore. You're eroding collaboration. So yes, your brain still thinks gossip equals bonding, but in modern organisations, what feels like connection actually corrodes trust and safety. And modern research from MIT Sloan calls gossip and blame social contagions, like a cough in an open plan office. One eye roll spreads across the team faster than you think. It changes how people talk, how they think, and eventually how they work, which is why one person's sarcastic side comment can actually tank the whole vibe in a meeting. So whilst joining in the gossip can feel like belonging in the moment, it's a short-term hit that eats away at psychological safety. And when safety goes, performance tanks. Not just from the person being whispered about, but for you too, because once gossip becomes the currency, trust dries up. People hold back ideas, they stop taking risks, and even the gossiper starts second-guessing what others are saying about them. And you know what? There's another sneaky culprit that sometimes drags us below the line: unconscious bias. Bias isn't always loud or intentional. It's those mental shortcuts your brain runs without asking you first. The problem is, though, they shape how we treat people. We assume the quiet one has nothing to add. We go to the same safe colleague for feedback. We take the confident voice as fact, even when it's not. Sometimes bias shows up in really ugly ways too. Not cartoon villain obvious, but those everyday moments that chip away at safety. Like when a woman makes a point in a meeting nobody bites. Then a man repeats it and suddenly it's brilliance. That's not brilliance, that's bias. Or when a younger team member shares an idea and gets told, let's leave the big decisions to the people with more years behind them. The translation is that your contribution doesn't count yet. Or when someone with a strong regional accent speaks up and the response is, oh, that sounded funny, say again. Everyone laughs, but the idea itself gets sidelined. Now, you might brush these off as examples, but you know what? They are all examples that I have seen and experienced recently. So it still goes on. Even outside the room, studies show that CVs with foreign-sounding names are less likely to get interviews. Even with identical experience, think about that. It's not talent deciding the outcome, it's bias. And that bias is undermining psychological safety in broad daylight. We all have blind spots. Having them doesn't make you a bad person. But if you refuse to spot them, well, that's a choice. Rising above means noticing when bias is steering you and working to make a different move. Let's make this real. I'm going to give you 5 scenarios and I want you to think about yourself. Pick out which one is your default position. Are you ready? Scenario 1. A colleague says something you think is really obvious in a meeting. Now, the below-the-line response would be to roll your eyes, mutter about it later to Frank as further evidence to support your belief about your colleague. Above the line would be to pause for judgment, look for intent, acknowledge their point and build on it. Good reminder. And actually, here's something we can do to take that forward. Or, if it's really obvious, reframe it. Great reminder. Sometimes the simple points are actually the ones that we forget under pressure. Thank you. Which one would have been your natural inclination, above or below? Scenario 2. The gossip circle forms after a tense meeting. Below the line would have been to join in with, yeah, she's useless, isn't she? That downward spiral. Above the line, that was frustrating, I agree. But, let's think about what we can actually change to make things better. Again, which would have been your natural inclination? Scenario 3. Your boss makes a call you just don't like. Below the line would be to moan about it privately, stew in your own resentment. Above the line is to ask, can you walk us through the why behind this, please? Scenario 4. A colleague slags off another person in the team. Below the line would be to laugh along so you don't feel left out. Above the line, something like, should we save the roasting for Sunday lunch? And scenario 5. You get left out of a vital project update. Below the line would be to sulk, gossip about how unfair it is. Above the line, hey, could you make sure that you loop me in on the next update? I really want to make sure that I continue to be aligned. Do you notice the difference here? Now, where did you mostly land? Above or below? No shame, no guilt. I've been there. I've done some of these things as well. But awareness helps us change because once you notice your pattern, you've got the power to choose differently next time. And this is what I want you to remember. This isn't just about eye rolls in meetings or whisper circles after work. The stakes can actually be so much bigger. Whole industries rise or fall on whether people feel safe enough to admit mistakes and share what they've learned. To show you what I mean, here's a story that Gary told me in his interview last week. Gary told me a great story last week, and it really got my head thinking about culture, about the part that I play in improving things. And I just love it, Gary, if you would share that story with our listeners today.
Yeah, no problem, Caroline. So it was the story of a chap called Darren Warren, who in the 1950s went to a German trade show, and he noticed a thing called a dictaphone. And when he saw this dictaphone, which is a recording device for anyone who's young listening to this now.
We won't have them anymore, will we?
Exactly. We do it all on our phones. But his idea was, wouldn't it be interesting to put a dictaphone, a recording device, into a commercial airline? And he wanted to do it so he could record the final moments of the conversation between a pilot and a co-pilot in advance of an accident happening. Because Darren Warren invented the black box that goes in airplanes. And as an aside, a black box is red, by the way. It's not black because it's easier if it's red to find it in the wreckage. But the important thing is that what he created was 8 decades of learning from mistakes and learning from failure. So in the airline industry, they've got to a point now where, because of 80 years of finding out what went wrong, it's the safest form of travel on the planet. If you get into an airplane versus if you got into a car. And it's thanks to him that whole industry has this attitude that when things go wrong, it's a learning experience, it's a path to success, it's a path to greater safety, which is in complete parallel to what Matthew Syed talks about in his book, Black Box Thinking, the American healthcare industry, where there are 400,000 preventable deaths every year. Why? Because people are scared of litigation and being sued, so they suppress errors and they don't talk about mistakes in many instances. Now, 400,000 people a year is the equivalent to 2 jumbo jets having an accident every single day.
It's insane, isn't it? Yeah.
So there's two different industries for you with a completely different attitude to learning from failure, and a personification in mistakes is the path to success, not the opposite of it.
Wow. That contrast says it all, doesn't it? In aviation, every mistake is logged, studied, shared. And that's why flying is now one of the safest things you can do. Whereas in the US healthcare system, 400,000 preventable deaths a year because people are too scared to speak up. The fear of blame drowns out learning. The difference isn't talent or resources, it is mindset, above the line thinking, the willingness to say, we'll learn from this, even if it hurts. And if whole industries live or die by this mindset, imagine what it can do for your career. Just ask Blockbuster, Kodak, Nokia, even Enron. Each one had the signals, but their culture made it unsafe to challenge the status quo. When people are scared to speak up, organisations don't just lose ideas, they lose their future.
It's time for What Would Caro Do? Like a career agony aunt, but with less cardigan and more fire.
Because sometimes you don't need permission, you just need better advice. So that moves us nicely onto What Would Caro Do? And here we've got Billy telling us his concern.
My team constantly gossips about our boss. If I don't join in, I feel excluded. If I do, I feel horrid. Help!
Oh, this is so common, isn't it? It's a classic balance between belonging versus integrity, and it becomes a bit of a tug of war inside your head. Gossip feels like belonging points, but it's so anti-black box behaviour. Instead of logging the issue and learning, gossip hides it in the shadows. So let's look at a black box move. Acknowledge the frustration without fanning the flames. It's tough, I get it. I don't like it either, but let's think about what we can actually do differently to improve the situation. By saying something like that, you've logged the signal, but you're redirecting the energy towards solutions. Belonging that's built on gossip is cheap. Belonging that's built on honesty, well, that's the kind of crew I want to fly with, and I hope you do too.
Small shifts, sharp impact. These are quick-fire career moves, real things you can do before your next coffee refill.
So let's take this black box thinking into our quick-fire career moves. Number 1, log it, don't hide it. Instead of sulking, say, here's what happened and here's what we've learned. Number 2, ask what, not who. Shift from blame to analysis. What broke here? 3, share the lesson. Bring it into the open. Next time, let's XYZ. And 4, challenge gently. Try humour, like we did with, should we save the roasting for Sunday dinner? And finally, number 5 is a reflection for you. Keep checking your own behaviour and ask an above-the-line check-in. Would I say this if the person was in the room? Or am I solving the problem or just spreading it? That's your black box toolkit. No hiding, no blaming, no finger pointing. Just log it, learn it, share it, and rise above. Wendy Ganaway, my partner in crime, always says behind every action is a positive intent. The intent might be well hidden sometimes, but most people really aren't being mean, awkward, or objectionable. They have a positive reason for acting the way they do. You know, they might be coming from a place of fear or self-preservation, for example. And if you keep that in mind, it helps you take the sting out of the situation and helps you rise above. So with that in mind, let's swiftly move on to...
This quote has the right vibe and the completely wrong advice.
So let's fix that before someone puts it on a mug. So this week's career quote crime that needs to be put firmly in the bin is...
Don't rock the boat.
Yes. I wouldn't agree though, would you? I think rock the boat gently if needed, but just don't capsize it. The problem with don't rock the boat is that it trains people to stay silent, even when the boat's heading straight for the rocks. Psychological safety isn't about keeping the waters calm at all costs. It's about making it safe to say, hey, we need to change course here. Rocking the boat gently means speaking up with respect and intention. You're raising the issue to steady the ship, not to tip everyone into the sea. That's how innovation happens, how risks get spotted, and how trust actually builds. So yes, rock the boat when it matters, but do it with purpose, not drama. Anyone can point the finger. It takes guts to rise above. Don't be the one who hides in the shadows or fans those flames. Be the one who logs the black box, who shares the lesson, who turns mistakes into momentum. That's how you rise above. And that's how you fly. That's your career fuel right there. Now, a plug for next week. Next Tuesday, I'm joined by Paul Dawson, and he is living proof that scraping through your GCSEs doesn't mean scraping through life. From results that suggested limits, not leadership at school, to CEO of a company transforming the parking industry. His story is raw, surprising, and a reminder that success is not a straight line. You'll want this one in your ears. And remember, make your move, even if it's tiny, especially if it's tiny. See you next week.